Tahlea, great to speak to you. Firstly, let's talk about Tonga's rather unusual election system, parliamentary system.
Yes, so Tonga is a constitutional monarchy, and this is only their fourth election since reforms back in 2010 that kind of really aimed at making democracy more democratic for the people of Tonga. So Tonga's parliament has 26 seats. There are 17 people's representatives, and they are the ones that the 60,000 registered voters vote for, and there were 72 candidates vying for those seats. Then we also have the noble seats, and there are 9 noble seats, and they kind of represent the monarchy. So when it comes to election day, there's kind of 2 mini elections going on. There are the people voting for the people's seats, and then there are 33 nobles who vote for the noble seats. So we already know the results of the noble seats because, 33 voters doesn't take that long. Exactly. So relatively remained unchanged. 6 people have been returned. There are 3 new nobles coming in, and they're replacing 2 nobles who are overseas with medical conditions. And there's a reason why the nobles are really stable, because it does reflect the stability of the monarchy. So obviously a busy day nonetheless for people in Tonga heading to the polls today.
So what do we know of the 17 seats that will be decided by the people?
Well, we don't know a lot yet. Generally, when they go in, it's pretty they just kind of... so what happens that there's no party politics. So every candidate registers as an independent, and then if they are elected into Parliament, they kind of just join up with like-minded people, and that is what forms parties, because a part of those democratic reforms is there are no party politics. So then what essentially happens is that they will then get voted in and in that process. Now, what's interesting about this election is that the 2 kind of main parties going into the election, they've had some dramas this year, let's just say. There was a reason why King Tupou VI told people up prior to the election to choose wisely. And that is because there is the one party, the Democratic Party of the Friendly Islands. They were founded by former Prime Minister Aualiitia, who died in 2019. And following his death, there really wasn't a successor who took over. The other party is called the People's Party, and that's where the Prime Minister, Pohiva Tui Anatoa, is from. But they've also had a year. The Prime Minister survived a no-confidence motion, and one of his MPs was charged for corruption. So it really is kind of an interesting, anything could kind of happen. Of the 70-plus candidates who put their hands up, what people noticed is that they were a lot younger, and when we're saying younger, we're talking our 40s, 50s, and more educated, lots of them having PhDs. So regardless of what happens, it's definitely going to be a shake-up in the Tongan Parliament.
That's really interesting. And you talked about corruption there. What were some of the issues that were driving these elections?
Well, one of them is corruption, bribery, nepotism. So that was something that they're really trying to kind of stamp out. Also, Tonga owes a lot of debt, an international debt, which is I think 255 million. 2/3 of that is to China. So you can understand where loans and corruption come in. Another huge issue, of course, all around the world is the COVID pandemic. It was only in October that they lost their COVID-free status as a country when a returning person came from New Zealand. But it really did give them a scare, and there was actually criticism levelled at the government saying that they weren't prepared for what happened. Of course, always the economic downturn of what happened for a real tourism-dependent country, and they're not expected to open their borders until March next year. So COVID, another big issue. And then finally, the other issue that we are talking about that I've just forgotten. Oh my goodness.
Drug issue.
The drug issue. How did I forget the drug issue? This is why you're here. So the drug issue, and it is a really huge issue. Illicit drugs, cocaine, methamphetamines. The King doesn't really give these speeches to people generally, so the fact he's come out ahead of this election to talk about it. Drugs are a huge issue, taking up police, hospital and court resources to deal with the issue. So that again is why, the thing was to vote wisely and to hopefully choose people who can kind of change what is currently going on in Tonga.
That is really interesting. So when might we know the outcomes? I guess it could be some time before the Prime Minister-elect emerges.
Yes, so that is the other interesting quirk of the Tongan Parliament. So what will happen is the MPs will all get sworn in, and then within a week the King will appoint an interim Speaker, and that Speaker will oversee the election of both the Speaker and the Prime Minister. Now, what's interesting about that is that the nobles have to be the Speaker, but they can also be the Prime Minister. And when it comes to the Prime Minister, we have to do some parliamentary maths, always the fun part when we're talking about seats. So 26 seats in the Tongan Parliament, which means you need 14 seats to have a majority. The nobles with 9 seats normally vote as a block, which means they've got 9 seats and they just need to get 5 independents to come to their kind of party, and then that person who they deem worthy will become the Prime Minister. But generally, judging from past elections, we won't know that until around Christmas time. So wait and watch and see.
Fascinating systems. Great to have you sort that out for us. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, Bev.